This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here's your host, Mr. Steve Jones.
So Kyle asked me before the show, who do I get on more with sarcastic humor, Jerry Valeri or Jason Lord?
I think it's a competition.
And I said, well, it might be Jerry, but I did say something else besides that.
Oh.
I said, in all honesty, they're both awesome guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like great guys, great workers, smart people. They do great work. So I can't say enough good things about them. We just kid around a lot. Mm-hmm. That's all. It's all
in good fun.
Well, most of Jason's is. But do I have him tomorrow? I was like,
yes. Jason is back tomorrow. I'm just on air for the day, filling in for him.
I said yesterday, he wore that 49ers T-shirt, and I said, "Jeez, that is such an ugly shirt." I said, "But it looks really good on you."
Nice little backhanded compliment. Gotta love them.
What? But no, they both are really awesome guys. So don't ever get confused about just kidding around versus what you really think about somebody. I can't say enough good things about both of them actually, as people, and Jerry as a father and a husband and everything. So they're great guys.
All right, Steve getting sentimental. I'm going to text Jerry and let him know.
Oh, believe me, he's recording this right now. And he's going to play it back for his mom. Let's talk just to open up, then we'll get to some other topics about the importance of alignment. And this is a topic that James Franklin has talked about several times, but it cannot be understated or underrated. When you have a university president, in this case, Dr. Neely Ben-Pattuti, when you have an athletic director, in this case, Pat Kraft, along with a football coach and James Franklin, then you can add in other coaches too, like Mike Rhodes, Kale, everybody. Okay. When you have that kind of alignment where the football coach sees what the athletic director and the president see, the athletic director sees what the football coach and the president see, and the president sees what the athletic director and the football coach see. That's really important. Something that is also important is that you can be a great academic university and have alignment between the president, the vice president of intercollegiate athletics, and the football coach and the other coaches. You can do both. It's a big university. There's a lot of people running it along the way. And when you have an athletic department that is self-sufficient, not taking funds from the university to do it, some places are. There's several self-sufficient ones in the Big Ten, as a matter of fact. And that's why these TV contracts are so important. I know people are like, oh, the TV, they're running and they're ruining everything. But guess what? They aren't. Okay, now we can talk about alignment. I was on CBS this morning and I was asked about this. And I said, look, it was interesting. I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I said, when I was with Mike Rhodes and Char Moret in Hershey Thursday, I was asked by someone in the crowd about what do I think about Washington and Oregon coming in. And in the process of asking the question, the crowd then started to groan. And I said this on the show this morning. And it's not the first time I've heard that. And I gave it an honest and direct answer. I said, look, when they brought in Nebraska, I was like, okay, you need a 12 team. Notre Dame's not going to do it. So, all right, best port in the storm, Lincoln. And I really thought that they would stick at 12. Then they brought in Maryland and Rutgers. Now, they're close, which is great. But did that excite me coming into the Big Ten? No offense, no.
You don't love Piscataway?
But I'm just saying, it just didn't. It didn't have that big feel to it. To me, if you're in the Big Ten, I want if you're going to go big. That's why I've always talked about, and everybody has talked, I'm not the only one, about Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Okay? They're right smack dab in the middle of the Big Ten. All right? They're the big chip, and they're not budging.
Yeah.
So that's why Nebraska was like, okay, Nebraska, best port in the storm. But I didn't really, I was like, okay.
Well, that's the thing. Would you rather watch a NBA player have a nice, easy layup, or would you rather see him throw down a monster jam?
Right.
You'd much rather see the monster jam come in.
Right. Well, then when Texas and Oklahoma went, the first thing I said in the show was, well, people were like, oh, the Big Ten needs to expand. And they were throwing out all sorts of ridiculous names. The number of ridiculous ones I saw thrown out.
What's the one that you said, what are you saying here?
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
And Kansas. Okay. Now, they're both AAU schools. But you already have Iowa. You don't need Iowa State.
Why? Why don't you want Iowa State, Steve? Do you not want the Cyclones?
Well, you already have the market. You already have the state. They're already in the footprint. You don't expand within the footprint. Right? The Big Ten, the last time the Big Ten expanded within the footprint was 1953 when they brought in Michigan State. And even that was a fight because Michigan proposed Pitt. Believe it or not. Like Iowa State, Kansas. Of course, at that point, Kansas football was not very good. I was like, I said, look, if you're going to go big, I said, you can't get Notre Dame. He said, go big. I said, go to Los Angeles, get USC. That's what I said that week. Mm-hmm. I said, go get them. Well, they went big. And yes, they got Los Angeles and UCLA together, so now you are expanding into the same footprint with two schools. I got it. Mm-hmm. But it's also the state of California.
Yeah, California is a bit different in terms of it's huge, gigantic.
And you also needed to do something like this, a partner out there, instead of a one-off. And then, of course, the Oregon-Washington thing came up. And did it make the conference better? Yes. Did it make the conference competitively more exciting? Yes. The travel part, okay? Now that's the part that has to be worked out. Football and men's basketball and women's basketball, Kyle, to be honest with you, are actually not, while being more challenging, it's not difficult. It's more challenging, but it's not difficult. What's difficult are all the other sports because they play multiple times a week and there are issues with it. The money part of it, people should never forget about the money part of it. You have two sports that turn profits. One that is right in the neighborhood of it, men's ice hockey. Okay. But men's ice hockey is limited. There's
only so much.
There's seven schools playing it. 6 that are actually in the conference plus Notre Dame. So it's a small group, and believe me, the 4 they brought in don't play hockey. Okay, they don't wrestle either.
What, hockey's not big? Yeah, in Southern California.
Actually, it's huge with youth ice hockey is huge in Southern California because between the Ducks, the Sharks, and especially the LA Kings, which won a couple Stanley Cups.
Jonathan Quick, baby.
And Anaheim won one, obviously. But that's created a groundswell in that state for the sport. But that aside, football and men's basketball, and football by a wide margin.
As Ludacris said, those are the moneymakers.
Right? But football is the primary moneymaker. Well, you can't exist without money. You can't do it. You can't just keep throwing it into the bin and watching it burn all the time. You have to have the ability to cover it. So if you want to have all the other sports, the Olympic sports, this pays for that.
Pays for it tenfold.
Like whatever you can get to be competitive in each. You don't have to be bare bones. It's okay if you lose money because we're making enough over here and over here to compensate for it.
This sounds terrible to say, but I think some people don't understand the money aspect of it. Like, would I love it if all these programs could run on their own? If swimming and diving, if track and field and all of them made enough money to cover themselves so they can basically upgrade themselves consistently, it would be the perfect scenario, of course. Because you want everyone to be self-sufficient.
Right.
But
that's not realistic.
Not realistic. You don't see 100,000 people turning out for a track and field event every other day or every week. It doesn't happen.
I mean, look, you go to Eugene, track and field is a big, big deal.
It's huge.
Right? But even as much of a big deal as track and field is in Eugene, they don't make money from it. Mm-hmm. They may lose less money than others, but they lose money.
Might be closer to black, but it's not.
No, they're not closer to black, but they are not as deeply in the red as other schools. Mm-hmm. But you still lose money.
Yeah.
So back to alignment, which is where this all started. When you have a university president that understands all that and understands, okay, in this self-sufficient group, the cash cow, and what does the cash cow need to continue to be successful? Because the pressure on all these football programs, the pressure on Michigan, the pressure on Ohio State, the pressure on Penn State, the pressure on USC to be really good and to keep fans really interested and to keep networks really interested, there's a lot of pressure on them to do that, right? And you have an athletic director who says, hey, what do you need? Need to get to the college football playoff. What do you need? Right? This does not come at the expense of the university. Right? Like, well, that's all they do is think about football there. No, there's a lot of other people employed here that think exclusively about academics and research and things like that. It's a big, wide world out there. It's not just an exclusive world, but it's really important when you have the alignment in place that has an understanding of, okay, this section of my university, which, by the way, does financially take care of itself, okay, I believe in them.
Well, what happens when you don't have that alignment? What does it look like? As someone who is not as well educated in this side of things, what does it look like? What happens?
It becomes disjointed. It becomes where you're having to literally fight for everything that you need. When you look at other places that are aligned and you're saying, well, we'd like to be able, we'd like to win, but I mean, look how they're doing things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have comparisons all over the country as to what others are doing.
And this isn't even just a college thing. This is
this is in business.
This is a business. This is a sports thing. This is an everything thing.
Right.
Like, for example, go to the sports route. Let's go to the professional side of things.
Sure.
Just to give people an idea. When you see a team that has the owner, general manager, the coach, and the players all on the same trajectory, they're all thinking the same thought all the time. It makes it better. You can clearly see a direction the team is going in. Look at, for example, I know I'm a soccer guy. My team, Arsenal. Mm-hmm. We had the same coach for 30, 40 years, Arsene Wenger, up until 2018. Then he retires.
Yeah.
New guy comes in. We have a new guy kind of running everything at the top. Disjointed, doesn't work. We are bad. Just what it is.
Yep.
Then finally, new manager, Mikel Arteta, comes in. You get a new guy in charge in Edu, who's in charge of all the decisions that are getting made. And the Cronkies invest in Edu, and they invest in Arteta. And they say, we want you to succeed. How can we help you? And they each help each other. And now all of a sudden, we're fighting for titles. And we're one of the best teams in Europe. And we look really good. And we're going in a good direction. And all of a sudden, all the fans who are real scared and terrified, because the fans can see exactly what's going on in their program, are like, this is great. We love this now. It's fun.
I mean, look at the Pirates. That the alignment between general manager and manager looks to be pretty good.
It does.
Right? But the alignment between ownership and those two, all right, they end up putting, tying their hands as to how far they can take it. Right? That's the alignment on a professional level. You're saying, okay, now, do I want a guy to come in there and say, hey, here's $250 million, make it happen? Well, you got to be smart about it, but you can't be. You're trying to sit there and compete against. Now, look, the Yankees are way under 500 because they've made a lot of bad moves. but they have a $279 million payroll when it's all said and done. Right? Well, the Pirates are at 60. Okay, now are the Pirates getting the most out of their $60 million? Yes. Right? But the fans would like to, how about maybe spending 90 to 100?
Get close. Get a little better.
Right? In other words, at least fight to get competitive. I didn't say spend 279. I didn't say pay 200. I didn't say 150.
Yeah. Well, that's something that was a crux of Moneyball.
Yeah.
This is Moneyball. People have seen the film, read the book. I've done both, and it's great. The whole thing was like Billy Beane could not get more money, so he had to use what he had, and he only got so far with it. End of the day, sometimes you can only do so much of what you've got.
Yeah.
So you're spending 60. 60 is only going to get you so far.
Right.
It can only do so much for you.
Right.
And that sounds terrible. Teams that don't have these huge budgets can't win, but it's a problem that is a part of the game and that we have to kind of accept at some point that, the teams that spend more, it makes sense why they're a little bit better.
Look at John Angelos. He's already talking today about, I don't think we can keep this core group together. We're going to have to really raise ticket prices to do it. Again, that's alignment. Angelos, his general manager, his manager, and his team. Okay? Dan Snyder, the alignment was all wrong in Washington for years because of him. All right? Okay, so that's what we're talking about. So alignment happens not just collegiately, but it also happens on the professional level as well when you don't have that kind of alignment where it's not carte blanche, right? But you look around and say, we really need this. Okay, explain to me why you need it. Okay, that makes sense. Then you tell the president, he said, they really need this, and here's the reason why. And she sits there and said, okay, I get it.
You really need a wide receiver? Okay, then we'll go get a wide receiver.
So that's what alignment means. Now let's shift gears to what happened at USC. Jennifer Kohen is from Arcadia, California. That's where she grew up. And she took the athletic director's job at USC yesterday. And this is a pro's pro. And you say, well, she's jumping from Washington to USC. This is not one of those where she used Washington as a stepping stone. She was in that athletic department in Seattle for 25 years. There will be some that will say, well, she hired Steve Lake as the coach. Oh, for goodness sakes. And you just sit there and go,
you love people's comments, don't you?
Every hire's perfect. These people make no sense.
Steve, there has never been a single bad hire or a single bad draft pick in sport history. How dare you, sir?
There always has been.
What?
As a Red Sox fan, am I enamored with the job Chaim Bloom is doing with the Red Sox as GM? No. I don't. Now, but I also know that it's instructions from the top, but I don't like how he's going about it. That's, so there's going to be bad hires.
Are you saying Aaron Boone's not the greatest coach to ever live?
Oh, brother. I don't.
Jennifer Cohen.
Yeah. But, it didn't work. I got it. Okay? But Chris Peterson retired. So it wasn't like she didn't fire him. Okay. He left on his own.
She wasn't like, I want that guy.
I want that guy, you're out. But everybody knows she's a pro's pro, and now she gets to go from Washington, which will not get a full share, to USC, which has all the power behind it, including being a private university.
Including being USC as well.
Right. And as a private university, there's a lot of established benefits that they have that they've developed over decades. You can't just say, hey, let's all be a private university tomorrow. Benefits? No, it takes time to get where they are now, which they've done. So she'll get a chance to do that and feel like she has a lot to work with. The Coliseum we've done a lot of work on the Coliseum. The Galen Center, from what I've only seen it from the outside, so I've never been in it, but it's relatively new. So she doesn't have to worry about that. I don't know about their baseball facilities, track facilities. It's been a little while. It's been a little while since I've been on the USC campus. I just went by it.
But I would assume one would assume at least it's USC. It's probably quite nice.
Should be.
It should be. Should be. Regardless of how new it is, it's quite a high level.
The Coliseum is in an interesting spot. It's right there at the edge of campus, but it's also on the edge of Los Angeles and inner city Los Angeles. So it's always been in that interesting spot where I think it's not Compton High School. The one that Darryl Strawberry went to is at the end of the street. But it's but that's where it is. They've done so. USC now has an established pro at the helm of the athletic department with Jennifer Kohen, and then we'll see what they do from there.
Crenshaw High School.
It's at the end. Yeah, and Darryl Strawberry went to school there. It's right at the end of the street. And so this was a big move made by them. Now Washington's going to have to come up with somebody, especially in this transition, which is a big one to the Big Ten. It's interesting how the last 8 schools that have gone to the Big Ten, 5 have had to be integrated financially. 3 receive full shares right away. The 3 are USC, UCLA, and Penn State. Right? The other 5, everybody's like, oh, Washington and Oregon aren't getting full cuts. Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska, all right, all integrated over 6 years to get to the full share. Okay? And then Oregon and Washington have to do the same thing. What's the difference? There is no difference as to how it's going to work.
The only difference is that some of them are named USC and UCLA and Penn State, and others are named Rutgers.
And part of it too, but part of that too is that when Penn State came in, they negotiated a new TV contract. When USC and UCLA came in, it was right when they were negotiating a new TV contract. The others all came in the middle of contracts. Okay, so that made a big difference. All right, so the preseason is now over.
Oh, what a shame.
Good. Means we're closer to games. We actually have games this week, and it's not a great schedule. I mean, Notre Dame and Navy's like the premier game in Ireland. I'm like, Next week, now you have some games. Like Florida, Utah. Utah's on a Thursday night. Now, Cam Rising, I don't think Cam Rising is going to be able to play because of the injury in the Rose Bowl. But that should be a fun game to watch. I believe Nebraska's playing Minnesota. Right? So, I mean, you have some good games next week. This week, it's just one of those whet the appetite weekends. Hey, college football's on. Mm-hmm. And you're going to sit back and go, boy, there are a lot of bad games.
San Jose State, USC, baby. Let's go. Huge game.
I would say that after the first series of the second half, there's a good chance Caleb Williams is out.
How big do you believe USC are favored in this game?
In San Jose State?
San Jose State.
I will say, as a guess, 35.
The correct answer is 31. 31 is the correct number.
Close.
Can you tell me what the biggest school in terms of the real week 1 number is when it comes to a favorite? I believe second place currently is USC Nevada, tied with Texas A&M and New Mexico, but one game has a larger plus minus. You tell me, I will tell you the opponent.
Is it Florida International?
It is Middle Tennessee State University, I believe. They are playing a team in the top 25.
Yeah, they are. Middle Tennessee is playing. Are they playing Alabama?
Alabama is a 39-point favorite.
And they haven't even announced their quarterback yet.
I don't think they need to.
For this game,
I could play quarterback, Steve.
Yeah, but the next game, they'll probably need to because the next game's Texas.
Yeah, a little bit of a bump up from Middle Tennessee to Texas. It's about the same level, I was guessing.
The gambling thing is is interesting. Before I get to that, though, I do want to mention the Jim Harbaugh deal. We're going to suspend him for 3 games. This is their way of telling the NCAA, okay, go easier on us when the time comes. If I'm the NCAA, I look at him and go, hey, look, we want to suspend him for a year. We're going to do it anyway. I don't care. That's your business. They're suspending him for 3 non-conference games. All right. Michigan plays one of the weakest non-conference schedules in the country. It's interesting because Michigan was supposed to play on the original schedule UCLA this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, years ago, they bumped them off. But they were supposed to play UCLA. They bumped them off. So they're playing East Carolina,
UNLV and Bowling Green.
And it's just...
They're 36-point favorites against Eastern Carolina, to give you an idea.
I mean, that game's on Peacock for a reason.
Mm-hmm. At noon. Peacock game at noon.
Yeah. And that's... if I'm the NCAA, that doesn't impress me in the least. That's nice. I mean, I'd be like, man, that's nice. Yeah.
Honestly, they should have suspended him 4 games. His first game back is Rutgers.
Well, the original was 4 games that they say that they negotiated. The NCAA went, what are you talking about?
I think they would have been like, oh, no, he's got to miss Rutgers. Oh, no, Steve. I'm so scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, I dish on Rutgers too often, but I think it's warranted. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Big smile on my face. That's all that matters.
But at least we're talking about games. I don't usually talk. I mean, and I have no problem when you bring up odds. No problem at all. You can bring up odds anytime you want. It's legal in 30...
Quite a few states.
36 states, 37 states plus the District of Columbia now, including this state. So, I mean, people can lay down wagers left and right. But it's amazing how that part has really taken off and taken over in some ways, where you're talking about Alabama and Middle Tennessee, 39-point spread. The problem that you have is moving forward is what has happened at Iowa and Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, now you're going to have players like at Iowa, for example, that it's not an NCAA problem. They're in trouble legally for what they're accused of doing.
Yeah.
And then you have Noah Shannon. Well, Noah Shannon is the one that I've been looking at the entire time in all this. We all know that in there somewhere, to what degree we don't know, but he's been implicated because he's admitted it. Okay. And they say he's been very straightforward with the NCAA about what he did or didn't do. It's not a legal issue for him. It's an NCAA issue for him. And they haven't made a ruling yet. And why I'm looking at it is, guess what game number 4 is?
I wonder, Steve.
Yes.
Does it involve a school that plays in State College, Pennsylvania by chance?
Yep. And that's why I'd like to know, what is his deal? I think Iowa's aching as to what their deal is. But Iowa also has not handled this right. I know you're shocked by that.
Whoa.
They haven't handled it right because, and I go back to, why was he on the list to go to Indianapolis? Like, what? Did he walk in and surprise you with the information? No.
They've known.
Right? And then, now take a guy like Aaron Eulis. He was a guard on the basketball team. He transferred to Nebraska. Well, his name is now linked.
Yeah.
Well, Nebraska just went to a foreign trip. Guess what they didn't do? They didn't take him with them.
So odd.
Right? It's amazing Fred Hoiberg knew what was going on, but Kirk Ferentz had no idea. Oh, yeah, sure, put Noah on. He's a great character guy. Okay, well, he may be a great character guy, but does anybody raise their hand and say, hey, look, I think we ought to lay low on this and not bring him? Well, I mean, it's stuff like that where, remember we were talking about alignment? That's been one Iowa where you wonder sometimes if the left hand knows what the right hand is doing.
No idea. Well, I want to bring up the betting portion real quick for a second.
Yeah,
I know you're not a big bettor, but I now
I'm a zero bettor.
You're a zero bettor.
Yeah.
You know what? That's positive. That means you're not in the red.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue there.
Right.
But in terms of like the commonality now of it, of course, as you said, the legality and how many states it's in. Now, when I pull up ESPN, I'm looking here at ESPN's like graphic for the schedule for Michigan.
Yes.
Got to pull it up.
Yeah.
It says Eastern Michigan, their record, Michigan, their rank, their record. It says the game time. It says it's on Peacock, and it says the favorites. It says
Right.
Michigan minus 36.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
It's pretty commonly able to find this now on ESPN. And
Right. Exactly.
a part of this is going to be now, especially with ESPN being the worldwide leader in sports and being the big brand in sports media, they now have a gigantic deal with Penn where it's what, $1.5 billion or something? Like, it's a crazy number. They're now going to have betting and sports books, and they're going to be involved betting odds with Penn and all of this, and it's going to just be gigantic.
Right.
And it's going to grow in terms of where you see it, and you're going to be on the screen instead of seeing those ESPN slide down things of like the Anze Kopitar trade to Ducks or something. I don't know if that ever happened. I don't know why I went Anze Kopitar, but I did. Like, you'll see, instead of seeing those things, you'll see Michigan favorited minus 36 popping up everywhere. It'll be flashed across the screen left, right, and center on ESPN, on their pages, on their apps, on their websites, on their fantasy football thing. Would it surprise me if there's a way in the future to make bets through your fantasy football league? Wouldn't surprise me one bit. Like, it's growing, gigantic.
My only question for ESPN would be, what's the fine line between putting news out there and betting lines?
Well, that's going to be the question.
So I go over, I'm the ESPN broadcast crew. I get to go to practice on Thursday at said university. So let's just say Ohio State. Well, they're not doing the game, but Ohio State, Notre Dame, NBC's doing the game this year. So, you know, the crew goes over to South Bend and they find out that, let's just say, something happened with Sam Hartman. It hasn't, but I'm just saying, say something happened with Sam Hartman. He might not be able to go this week. Ooh, what do you do with it?
Yeah, and
what do you now? What do you do? Right, because it could change the numbers
betting
up
lines.
and down. Yeah.
And I have a question for you as a broadcaster, someone who's broadcasted, worked in these places. There is going to be a lot of ESPN personalities who do not know to the extent a lot of the betting things. Like, there are some people who are quite well versed in the betting world, understand the pluses, the minuses, how it all works, and where you could like possibly put your money to win and stuff.
Sure.
How, as a broadcaster, as someone who may not know a lot, but in the middle of a game, the ESPN might be like, you have to put these things in the broadcast somewhere. How would you function with that and like work it in a way that's not being like, this is exactly what's going to happen here? Because this is not like,
I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable with it.
yeah. Like I feel not like I feel bad, but I feel like there's a strain that's going to be put on some broadcasters.
I feel that my responsibility is to do the game. What the outcome is, okay. To me, the final score is the outcome. To gamblers, the final score is then a route to what the outcome happens to be. What was the margin? And so, in other words, you're talking about Alabama, Middle Tennessee State, 39-point favorite. Well, what if Alabama wins the game 42-14? Well, Middle Tennessee State, quote, won the bet.
Number of times I've seen these random college basketball games in January where a player chucks up a three, they're down 13, and it goes in, and the plus minus was 11, and it goes in, and it's 11 and a half, and now it's an 11-point game, and like it swings it. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's why I've told the story 1,000 times, so I'll make it 1,001 about Northwestern's point shaving scandal, and one of the games did involve Penn State.
Add more fire to the Northwestern.
But this is
mosh pit.
1995.
Yeah.
This is way back. And Penn State had John Amaechi and guys, and Glenn Secunda and, and Danny Earl, Pete Lisicki. And so Penn State's a good team that year. They ended up getting to the NIT semifinals that year. And then the next year made the NCAAs and got ranked as high as 9th in the country at one point. All right. But they go in there, and the story goes that Kevin Pendergast, the former Notre Dame kicker, got involved. And then he knew some guys at Northwestern, and the guys that were implicated. And it's been put out there in print, Dion Lee, Dewey Williams, and a kid by the name of Kevin Purdy. Okay. So, they play Wisconsin. Wisconsin's like a 13.5 point favorite, and Wisconsin wins the game by 14. They're like, that's a little close, but we won. Then the next game was Penn State, and Penn State was like something like a 17 point favorite. And Penn State, I'm doing the game, and they just destroyed these guys. They won by 30 points. And then they decided to go for the bundle. So that's the first two were like the experimental bets. Now we're going to go for the bundle with Michigan, and the Northwestern players didn't want to do it. The line was 24, something like, I think it was 24.
It would have been a slaughter.
All right. And the Northwestern players, the three that were allegedly implicated, said, we can't do it. Well, Pendergast went to Evanston and told him, he said, look, we'll double the money. Okay. So they go out there, and Northwestern lost, but by 17. And everybody that had put the all in lost their shirts. And this kind of opened up the door for people to find out the depth of the scandal. And the Chicago Tribune and the Sun-Times both have this well documented. Back to what you were saying, when I thought back on it, Dion Lee was one of their better players, but he was also a player that could get you 17 one game, or he could get you 4 the next. So if he's up and down, you don't think twice about it because he's always been up and down. In fact, he literally had 17 at Rec Hall, and Penn State held them off that year, and then he had 4 in this game. Dewey Williams was always a guy that was never a great defender. So Amaechi getting 30 points, which was his career high, wasn't that much of a surprise. Right? But I'll say this. I remember specifically on the broadcast mentioning how it didn't seem like Williams was playing any defense. So then I thought, as this went through, I said, why Purdy? Because his name was linked to it. And I kept thinking, why Kevin Purdy? He doesn't start. He doesn't come off the bench. Right? And then it finally dawned on me. What does he do that he does really well? He hits threes. Right? Yeah, he's not a defender. He's not quick enough. He's, the rest of the offense, you could pretty much shut him down if you wanted to. But you stick him in the game at the end when they're clearing the bench, and he can hit a couple and change the number. So they needed to get him on board because they didn't need him changing numbers. Because you kind of thought about it as you're going through. Mm-hmm. He was the one I sat back and said, why him? He doesn't hardly play. And then I thought, you know what? But what does he do well? He hits threes. Well, guess what? A minute and a half to go, and the crowd's all yelling for that guy to go out there and shoot threes. Come on, go ahead. Boom. And all of a sudden he bangs down 2, and suddenly a 24-point game is 18, and the line was 20. Mm-hmm. Like, okay.
I have seen so many times on my timeline on social media, bettors losing their minds because it's like 2 seconds left. This guy heaves a half-court shot. It goes in. Yeah. One of those shots where, like, he doesn't care if it goes in or not, and it goes in somehow. Yeah. And the line changes, and you're like, oh, my God, I lost my bet because this dude nailed a 45-footer off his, like, weak foot because he was just chucking one up for fun. It happens. And now it's going to be a part of the broadcast. It's become more a part of, I guess, the sports society in recent years, and I think fantasy football has helped it along. Because that was always a big thing for me was the over-under on do I think I'm going to get enough points to win my league this week? Okay, right. Well, what if I have Alvin Kamara and we're playing the Colts and they have apparently a great run defense? Right. Like, I don't know if he's going to do that well. I may not want to play him because the over-under is let's say the over would be if he gets 88 yards, and I'll be pretty set, but I don't think he's going to get that. And then you go the other side and you take him out and you put in a Jonathan Taylor because the Saints defense may not be great against the run. And it's evolved. And now with ESPN's deal with Penn, getting involved there, and ESPN has broadcasts, and it's going to get a little more, I think, mainstream than it has been, because it's been a part of the NFL's got their deals, and you've got NBA's, like everyone's kind of had their own deals, but the spotlight ESPN has and the place it has in the sports world is just bigger than everyone else's is. So it's going to be shown in all of these things. I guarantee you'll turn on Get Up in the mornings and watch Greeny and all of these guys talk about betting lines now, and it's going to be a thing.
See, that's something that is concerning to me, because when you sit there and you spend the entire show doing that, well, now, is it maybe interesting? It very well may be something that is interesting to to those who are doing it.
Well, the big one for me, if I can really quickly, I remember it was last year's draft, in the NBA draft, not this one with Wembanyama, your favorite player in the world, the one prior to that, the Paolo Banchero draft, that going into like 36 hours ahead of time before the draft, the betting favorite was Jabari Smith, number 1 overall. It was Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero, in that order. And then I went to bed, woke up the next day, and all of a sudden, bam, all the betting lines changed overnight to Paolo being number 1. And ESPN everyone was freaking out about it, because they were like, we have no idea why this is happening. All of our information is saying Jabari Smith number 1. That's what Woj was saying. That's what Shams for The Athletic was saying. They're all like, we don't know where this came from. And then Paolo went number 1. So it's like, even ESPN doesn't know what to do with it. Even people who have to talk for a living don't know how to function with it. And it's adding this really weird, I guess, dynamic.
Well, here's the dynamic, okay? And that is, I sense, based on people who have left that network, right? People that have left that network, that they didn't have a lot of freedom.
Well, the most recent one, Diana Rossini just left The Athletic. That they felt like there was a company line they had to follow. There was instructions from the company. Well, this is a gigantic investment for them to put their name. I think it's going to be called ESPN Bet. ESPN Bet. And they're going to be in 16 locations where Penn currently is. They have their deal with Barstool Sports. That is now gone, and they're now with ESPN. So the 16 sports books that were Barstool Sports books in terms of 16 different states are going to become ESPN, and I guarantee you it'll grow to the 30 plus that it'll be soon.
Yeah.
It's big. And
it is big.
It is big. And you know what also was really big?
And by the way, I just wanted to at least make one quick point.
Go for
it. Lee and Williams did serve a little bit of prison time for it. Like, I think it was like a month apiece.
Yeah.
I think I call him Kevin Purdy. It's Matthew Purdy.
Purdy.
He was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, so he wasn't convicted of anything. Okay, and prosecutors said that, and then it extended to football.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the exact numbers. Here it is. Wisconsin 13.5 point. Badgers 170-56. So I got that right. Okay. Penn State was, I think I said 17. They were favored by 14. And I said they won by 30. They won by 30, 89-59. So I got that part right. Michigan was 25.5.
Oh, boy.
And I think I said in the story they won by 18. Well, they won by 17. 81-62. No, I think I said they won by 17. 81-64. And Williams averaged 8 points, 4.8 rebounds a game. God, those rebounds must have been against Division II teams.
Probably.
But
Well, you're talking basketball now, Steve.
I know.
And I have
when you're doing something like this, right? There's 10 players on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
2 can affect it.
Yeah, 2 can affect it. But you know what else can affect it? 1 player can affect it. And someone who's currently affecting a team in this state, his name is James Harden. He just, the NBA announced minutes ago, is being fined $100,000 for his comments calling Daryl Morey a liar. $100,000. Not a small number. It's quite a large figure. But this is, I guess they did their investigation into him and the comments made because they wanted to see what was transpired here because it's been big. It's been news.
He's just trying to move himself out of there.
He's trying to, but Daryl Morey has kind of been like, yeah, I will trade him if given a good trade that makes my team better. But James is like, I want to leave. Well, and you shouldn't have signed your contract. You shouldn't have accepted the different things here and there. I don't know. What are your feelings? We've discussed Harden so often.
I know.
But it's at the point now where if I am, let's say the Clippers, I don't want him. Like, there are a few players who at some point burn enough bridges. Kyrie has gotten to that point where, like, the Dallas Mavericks, I'm like, what are you doing? I don't want Kyrie anywhere near my franchise. James Harden, of course, for different reasons, is getting to that point where he's burned enough bridges. There is no more bridges to get him over the line.
Remember we were talking about alignment before?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That comes back to this. There are enough organizations who think that our culture is so strong that if we bring him here, it'll work. 9 times out of 10, no. There are certain people that have established themselves. It's one thing to say that a guy's been with one organization the entire time and we bring him in here and we'll be able to, yeah, that's possible because he only has the rep through one organization. This guy has burned through now 4 different organizations. Now, he didn't burn through in Oklahoma City because he was just playing Delt. That was a surprise.
But he wasn't a great situation. People don't enjoy him in Oklahoma City.
No, he was the 6th man on that team.
Yeah.
And felt like he was the star. All right, that's fine. And he, deep to his credit, in the playoffs that year and in the finals against Miami, he played well.
Yeah, and then he burned Houston to the ground.
Right.
Burned Brooklyn.
Right. And now you got Philadelphia. And, I mean, when the best thing you can say about a player's performance on your team is that he's not Ben Simmons, essentially that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, he's not Ben Simmons. Well, you know what? I mean, neither am I. But,
yeah.
It's like...
Neither of us are named Ben Simmons. Neither of us can defend well, but at least we can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Or attempt to.
Nah, I can't shoot anymore. I was out in Des Moines taking some shots. I'm like, I hadn't shot at basketball in a long time. It's like that was a disaster.
Well, no one needs to know about that, Steve. Don't worry. You're
bad.
good.
It was bad. Now, I was off to the side. I was in the high school gym over at Johnson High School. But the certain people, you look at and go, what? See, and Harden's he's being fined $100,000 by the league because guess what? The league looks at him and goes, hey, what's the deal here? And they've done everything with him, right? He was with Durant and Westbrook. Okay, out. So then, well, he hogs the ball all the time. So they bring in Chris Paul. He'll be the point guard. He'll distribute it to him. That didn't work. Then, hey, let's do a big 3 look. We'll reunite him with Durant. We'll add in Irving. That didn't work.
Well, you're missing one. They also swapped Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook, and spoiler,
right,
didn't work.
Right. So, and then that didn't work either. So then he goes to Philadelphia. We'll pair him up with the big man. Well, that won't work either. No matter what you do with him, it doesn't work. He just wants to take the ball and shoot it. He has no idea how to play team basketball. None. Zero. And in this particular case, he doesn't know how to play organizational ball either.
Mm-mm.
He just doesn't. And, you know, He's lauded as a great talent. He has had some big scoring games in his career. He is a product of highlights on ESPN. He is not a product of good basketball. And you don't have enough people. Now, okay, I realize the NBA, you have a contract with ESPN, but do you have anybody on that set saying, you know what, he's not playing good team basketball? Nobody ever says it.
Nope.
No, Charles Barkley would say it. I mean, why do you think TNT crushes these people? They crush these people all the time because they've got the personalities and they're willing to sit there and go, you know what, I don't like him. He's not very good.
Shaq and Chuck will speak their minds.
Well,
sometimes to a crazy extent, but they'll do it.
Oh, sometimes they'll be crazy, but Kenny Smith is, level-headed. Ernie Johnson will poke the bear just a bit,
and he might be the best. He is, I think, the best studio host in the industry.
I would say that you are probably correct. I can't think of anybody that's better than Ernie Johnson.
No, he's as good as they get,
and everybody will tell you he's as good a man as the. I mean, you talk to if you ever talk to any of the people that work on the set there, they go, "That doesn't get any better than him off the set, on the set." Than Ernie Johnson.
The best of them.
And, but he's just not.
Yeah.
For example, I go back to draft night when they drafted Mikal Bridges. And then they dealt him for the kid from Texas Tech.
Zaire Smith, baby.
Right. And I remember when they drafted him, I thought, wow, let's give the Sixers credit. That's a great pick. I'm watching the draft thinking, wow.
Yeah.
I said, that's a great, savvy pick. He won't be a superstar, but boy, he'll be really good. And 10 minutes later, I said, what are we dealing with total idiots here? I couldn't believe they did it.
To an extent.
And guess what? If Mikal Bridges were still with them, he and Embiid would have formed the cornerstone where now you can add in
someone else as a guard.
Right.
Harden.
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah. Wouldn't that have been fun, Steve? And of course, this is what people come to every day with Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. And you can check back daily for all the latest sports news and analysis with a